And one. Hello, welcome. Today with me is Marina Lopez. She's a bilingual mental health professional, keynote speaker, and she shifts the way, the mind processes information to heal people from emotional and mental pain. She also meets with individuals who are looking to make a lasting change in the way they feel, think, or react. Thanks so much for appearing today, Luz.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Is there anything else you'd like me to add to the introduction?
I think you did a great job.
Excellent. So everybody has like a cool story or transition into, what they're doing today. So what was your story like? What brings you into your current line of work? And, what is life like for you today?
Okay, yeah, it's a little bit of a long story. I'll try to condense it. But I grew up with a family member that had issues with mental illness and addiction, kind of, they worked simultaneously with one another. And being on the other side, being the child in a home like that, it creates a lot of confusion and anger and resentment and all these different things. And it took me into adolescence with a lot of anger, because I would see families that seem normal, and I would watch TV and everybody was like having dinner and doing all these things, and here I was in these situations that were insane basically. And it caused a lot of things internally for me that I didn't really understand. And I was growing up at a time where it wasn't really a conversation people were having as far as, resentment and how to deal with anger and all these different things. So I remember getting to a point where I said, I have to try to figure out how to make this better. And I remember I took a city bus to a local bookstore, and I found this book. I pulled it off the bookshelf because the title of it had a smiley face, and it just grabbed my attention. And I started looking through it and learning about the mind and our capability to use our mind to change our emotions. And I started putting this into practice and started changing the resentment, started changing all these things, all these questions, and just started having this peace that went on inside. So I realized that it worked for me. At that point, I never thought about making it a business or anything like that. So then you fast forward, I end up getting a job in the corporate world, in sales, very fast-paced world. It was like watching movies where there's like numbers all over screens and people are yelling out whenever sales are being done. And it was very competitive, and I did it, and I did well. I never had any sales experience, but I love to learn. So I did pretty good with that. But then as I was making the money and having the recognitions and all of this, I felt like I wasn't where I needed to be, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I ended up deciding to volunteer in my community. I ended up going to a shelter for homeless youth. And I just said, hey, I'm here. I want to volunteer. Do you have anything available? Interestingly enough, they're like, well, yeah, we need someone to take these kids to substance abuse meetings, to 12-step meetings. And I remember going and sitting one day in this room with all these people sharing about their addictions and remembering what it was like for me to grow up with a family member that had this issue as well. And when I was there, I'm like, this is where I'm supposed to be. And I didn't even know how to tie it together. So I started going to college at night while I'm working full time. And I said, I want to work with people that are suffering from emotional things, that don't really understand that it's not that there's something wrong with them. They're making it happen. They're going through life, but something inside of them doesn't feel right. And it doesn't have to be this prolonged thing where, oh, you've got to like make them feel like they're broken. It's like, let's offer solutions. And I understood enough about the mind to know that it could heal, but there was an approach to it. So anyways, fast forward, I go through college, do all of that. I start working in this shelter. I leave my high paying job to take this job, having to make all these sacrifices with my husband in order for me to do that. And then as I continued and learned how to treat these things and learn how the mind works, the anatomy, because we don't talk a lot about anatomy in the therapeutic world, and that's a huge part. We're treating the mind, we need to know how it works. Yeah. And as I did that, I worked in agencies, I worked in nonprofits and substance abuse places, and then here I am now. I have my own practice. So that's the story.
That's the full story.
That's it.
So, what problems are people mainly trying to solve when they come and work with you?
Anxiety is a big one. We're dealing in a society right now where a lot of people have anxiety, with all the fast paced systems that we have, in our culture, yeah, social media, where we're constantly comparing ourselves, all of these different pressures that we haven't had before. There's a lot of anxiety going on. So dealing with uh panic attacks and all these different things, that's one of the things I treat as anxiety, but not to teach people how to cope with it, but let's eradicate it altogether by letting your mind understand that what's the difference between a threat and a non-threat. So
Yeah.
anxiety, I also treat anger, just because of how I dealt with that and understanding it from that personal perspective. And then trauma, just because it's always tends to be underlined to everything else that's going on. So those are the three things I specialize in. Of course, people come to me for many different things, but those are areas that you have to be very specific in how you treat. So that's a lot of my work.
Yeah. Can you this is probably a different kind of question, but what are some things that people can start to, utilize in their day-to-day life to start becoming aware of what actually causes anxiety? Because sometimes like we might think that something's causing it, but it's actually something else.
Right. So, yeah, you're right. And that's why anxiety is so confusing, because it's like suddenly I can't breathe. Suddenly my chest hurts. Suddenly I feel like the walls are caving in. What happened? And it's just the mind is causing the body to react to what it perceives as threat. So, I mean, what you could do, once you're out of that, obviously you're not going to do it while you're feeling these things, but you could go back to your day, just kind of think throughout the day, well, what did I do, what did I think about, become a little bit more aware of what you're thinking about, in order to see if you could connect it to where the symptoms are coming from.
Mm, okay, cool. So what are some things that you do to either, de-stress or just, relax, like in these tough times or we're stuck inside? Do you have any tips for the people at home?
Yeah, definitely. Starting our morning off with the right mindset is always very important, because it's the start of a new day. So how are we starting that? One thing you could do is take a moment and have gratitude for everything that's going on. You'd be surprised how many things we could be grateful for. Everything from the fact that our bodies are functioning to get us out of bed, that our heart is beating, that are, so many things that we don't even think about. Start off there. What else are you grateful for? Who's around you? Is it a loved one? Is it a pet? Your home, your neighborhood, your neighbors. Start making, really sitting with that. But when you're thinking about it, not just like jotting stuff off, because that doesn't get your mind into the space of it, but actually really sitting with each one. I'm grateful for my house. Wow, I remember what it was like to want to get it. I remember going through the process of the application. I remember what it was like to get the money put together, and actually do that and sit with that, because that gets your mind into a different space.
Mhm.
Once you start your morning off that way, then in that state of gratitude, plan your day. What could you incorporate today that's going to make you feel good? Do you like to read? Do you like to garden? Call a friend or a family member that makes you laugh. Do you want to watch a funny movie? Because when you're in that space of gratitude, your cognition is so open that you could start thinking of positive things that you could do. And then I write a list. So I'll start with, okay, today I've got to do this. I've got this podcast. I've got this session. I've got this, whatever I'm doing, this training. Then I'm somehow going to incorporate reading or exercise. I love to exercise. Or having a nice conversation with a friend. What friend am I calling today? And I like to check it off, because it just lets you see, like, wow, I am progressing, like, throughout my day. So those are things that you could do to make you deal with stuff. And with that mindset in the morning, it's going to help you plan it out better.
Yeah. Okay. That's actually really interesting. A lot of people just say, just write it down, just think of 100 different things. This is really cool. The gratitude. That's a
Mm-hmm.
different take on it. What is your vision for your life?
My vision for my life. Well, I just want to continue to provide relief for people. I've always looked at the mental health field, I love it. That's why I'm in it. I love my profession. But, I think we could be doing so much better than just let's give people coping skills. To me, that's not relief. Relief, it's let's eliminate this altogether. So that's my vision, is how do I want to be able to continue to offer that relief. I love when people come to me and they're telling me, I've been in therapy for many years. I know that I'll have this forever. And then I say, okay, well, come see me and let's see what we could do. And after a few sessions, they're like, why is it that that thing doesn't happen? Why don't I have shortness of breath? And it's because you have an amazing mind that if you know how to address it, it wants to heal. So to continue to have those moments when where I get to see their face and they're just like shocked that they can't believe that they don't have to live like that. So that's my vision, just to continue to offer that and to continue to see people's lives change.
That's a really interesting question. I was that brings up something that I was thinking about yesterday. I was working with a new client, and the comment that was made was, I've never had money before, so it's always hard for me. So what are some tips you have when someone has like I was saying, a limiting belief of, I've been doing this for years, it's probably never going to change? What are some tips on that?
I always say, well, what's the worst that could happen? Really have the person think, well, what's the worst that could happen? And oftentimes the fear of the change is what keeps us from doing it. But when you ask what's the worst that can happen, and your answer is, well, I'll just feel the way I've been feeling. It's like, yeah, you've been feeling like that for 20 years, right? So worst thing, you feel the same way you've been feeling. Best case, you don't have to feel this way. And they're like, yeah. It's like, well, why not try then? So but worst case scenarios are helpful for that, because when we think of change itself, it's scary. But when we think of the worst case scenario, it kind of takes away the fear, because you kind of you remove some of the layering that maybe you put in just the whole concept of change, to just kind of be like, well, I'm afraid of it not working out. Mm-hmm. And it's like, yeah, so then you'll be kind of where you are now, which you've managed to deal with and even thrive, because you're sitting here now.
Yeah, it's really good. What is success to you? Like, what does that word mean? What does that look like?
Success is, to me, it's not about a status. It's not about accumulation of wealth or material things. It's about knowing that you are doing what you're working in my corporate job. You would look at it and say, wow, that's success right there. I mean, you've got the wealth, you're traveling, you've got the job, you've got the car, you've got the house, all these different things. But yet I knew I wasn't walking where I needed to be. I knew that at night I wasn't going to sleep and saying, wow, I feel really great about what I did today. Instead, I was saying, why do I still feel an emptiness inside? So to me, success is when you go to bed at night and you know you did exactly what you were supposed to be doing.
Okay.
It's about purpose more than anything else.
Okay. I like that. It's really great. So are you working on any special projects right now, or?
Well, I started my private practice not too long ago. I've been contracting for different places and working for other agencies, but just because what I do is a little bit outside of the box, I realized I had to be on my own to really execute it. So that's the project. It's just marketing, learning how to be an entrepreneur, learning how to think of all these little nuances that come into being in your own place. So that's a project within itself. So yeah, continue to just meet with people, offering the same type of services, but now I'm my own boss, so that's my project.
Yeah. It's an interesting step when you're your own boss.
Oh yeah, definitely.
How have you adjusted to all, either the time difference where you're not being controlled by someone? How have you adjusted to it?
At first, I couldn't believe it, right? We're so used to working for someone and kind of having our schedules taken care. It's like, well, you'll be here at this time and you'll be doing this at this time. And now I'm like, wow, I can actually set my own schedule. So at first it was just like that shock phase where you don't really even know how to do it. But what I've learned, what's helped me the most is what I told you earlier, just setting up a schedule. So that's how I've adjusted. It's like, okay, I have this many hours. I know that I need to get this done. I know that I need to do this, maybe this marketing piece. I know that I've got to meet with this person, and just setting up a schedule, checking it off my list. I still write lists. I haven't converted totally to the digital world. I still go to the grocery store with a list, and I still have a list at home. And then just checking stuff off. It's how I've managed to stay accountable.
Okay. Yeah. That's it's like everybody talks about like they want to be able to either work from home or like be their own boss. And the quarantine happened. And now they're like, I want to go back to work.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, I'm like, dude, 5 years in the game, like this is nothing new. It's every single day working from home, you know.
You're like, I've been in quarantine this whole time.
Exactly. I don't know if you ever saw the movie Batman. It was
Yeah.
the newest one with Bane or whatever in the trilogy. And Bane
No, I
goes,
haven't seen it.
the quote was, they're fighting in this cave, and Bane goes, "You merely adopted the dark. I was born in it." And it was just, and I was
You're like, welcome to my world. Now
yeah,
you're
welcome.
inside my, yeah, exactly.
Excellent. How can people learn more about you, or where can they find you online?
My website is where you could get all my information. That's Luz, Luzm Lopez, Luz M Lopez therapy.com. And you got my phone number there, email, testimonials, pictures. I mean, I try to make it a one-stop shop. So
Excellent.
everything you could possibly need about me is on that site.
Excellent. I really appreciate your time, and thanks so much for doing the interview with us today.
Thank you for having me, and congratulations on your podcast, your good work, and I wish you the best.
Excellent. Thank you. And for
Have
those
a
watching, if you would like more interviews and content just like this with people who are, improving themselves and helping others to do the same, I recommend you go and check out the link in the description below to my free group, either on Facebook or LinkedIn, so you guys can get plugged in with like-minded people and start to improve your life. If that's what you're interested in, go ahead, click on the links below, register. Whoa, not register, it's a different thing. Click on the link below, join the group, and get connected with us. Have a great day, guys. Talk to you soon. We're done recording in 3 and 2 and 1.